Welcome to a brand spanking new episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lastia Cahoot and I'm your host. I'm joined by my co-host on this show and in life, Glenn Sheridan. Every episode, we're joined by a special guest who inspires us to consider not only what we think, but how we think and how that thinking impacts our life experience. It's time to get this conscious conversation started as we ask today's guest, who do you think you are? Hello, and welcome to another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? My name is Lastia Cahoot, and I am your host. And as always, my co-host on this show and in life is Mr. Glenn Sheridan. Where are you?
I am Glenn. This is the sound of my voice. Hello, everyone.
This is the sound of my voice. And once again, we have a super special guest that we're really excited to have an amazing conscious conversation with. But before we get started, I would like to invite Glenn to express some gratitude and acknowledgement for where we are coming from today.
Hello, everyone. So this is an ongoing process for me, but I just wanted to come from a place of gratitude as I do this. So as we begin, we would like to acknowledge the ancestral and traditional territories of the Haudenosaunee peoples where we gather today. We want to acknowledge and appreciate that we are settlers living, playing, and working with gratitude on the traditional territory of the Senchothan speaking people, in particular the Tsartlip First Nations where we live. And we send thanks and blessings to the people who have been the stewards of these lands and remain so, and who still live here. Haichka, thank you.
Haichka. Oh, thank you, honey bunch. Okay, so super amazing guest with a super amazing intro. Here is a little bit about our special guest today. So our guest today is a spiritual coach and is the founder of Awaken and Rise Coaching, which is specializing in helping women get to the root of what is making them feel stuck and unsatisfied in life. She focuses on trauma recovery and reprogramming the subconscious mind so that you can live a life of purpose, prosperity, impact, and freedom. She is also a licensed spiritual practitioner, a spiritual psychology coach, a speaker, and author, and has over 10 years of experience of working with clients in coaching and personal development. She also has a deep desire to continue her reach to all corners of the world and bring her work internationally through speaking, teaching, coaching, and writing books. I know this person a little bit because we are in ministerial studies together this year, and she's going to tell you a bit more about it later on, but she has something starting in March called the Divine Purpose Project that allows women to come together in a small container and be held and seen as they unravel the deep beliefs that are holding them back. She believes that by being witness to your mess, you are able to transmute and transform your trauma into your purpose. But the most important work that she does is to be a solo mama to two beautiful growing boys and continuing to show them how they are the creators of their own life, which is really what it's all about and what we talk about here. So knowing that there is so much more to dig into and knowing that there is so much more that is already on its way, Nicolle Star, tell us, who do you think you are?
This is a question I've been thinking about this whole week because I wasn't sure quite how to answer this, but the most simple answer that I can give in who do I think I am? I think I'm divine. I think I am the divine. I am spirit, God, all of it. I'm you, I am me. All of us playing in this game or this life that we have as one. And so that's really who I think I am. That's what I teach my children. And that's what I try to embody in life and what I do.
An amazing answer. And we could go in so many different directions there. I got to tell you right away, being in class with someone else who we've had on the podcast, Amy Steinberg, when I hear I am divine, I hear her voice singing it. And because there's a song that she has, I think she actually sang it in class as an assignment, one step. And there's a line where she goes, knowing you are divine. And so when I hear that, I just hear her voice like singing the word divine. Now, the word that jumped out at me here is playing. And I think it's because part of Glenn's sort of interpretation is that there's playfulness and that there is fun and that there is joy in that kind of way. That's who we are at our core. So can you speak a little bit more about the playfulness or what you said, sort of playing in this game of life?
Yeah. So, well, one, there's that book called The Game of Life, which is amazing. But this is a word that I'm trying to bring into my vocabulary, my life more and more, because what I find is that spiritual people can be very serious and kind of, wanting to just always be so deep and in the work. And so how do we bring this play and this fun and this, still being in conscious conversation and the lightness and the laughing and the fun and the playing with my children, more intentionally. And probably because I'm a mom too, I try to be more intentional with the play there. But that I'm finding as I get deeper into knowing who I am and what I desire is to bring more fun into my life and play and not be so serious all the time in the conversations that I'm having, in the work that I'm doing, and kind of allowing myself to be a little bit more free. And so that's where I bring it in more.
I love that. And I agree with you. I think that it can be so easy to get bogged down in this sort of, I mean, heaviness is not necessarily the word that I would use. For me, it's like immensity, or the infinitude. Like it's something that can be so hard to wrap our minds around. Like, what is actual infinity? Because it's not like there's one infinity. Like infinity is infinity, like there's no beginning, there's no end. It's all of it, like you said, and it's just ongoing all the time in gazillions of infinite bazillions of ways. And so how can you not sort of sometimes go, oh my God, like my brain is melting, my brain is hurting, because I'm being so pulled and stretched and expanded, and I just maybe kind of want to contract for a little bit. And so the playfulness and sort of the abandon that we can bring into our lives, just as we rediscover, because what we're talking about here is not something that we need to find. It's not something that is missing. It's not something that is out there somewhere. It's the essence of who and what we are. And so whether you call it the divine, God, spirit, source, beauty, harmony, love, creativity, imagination, universe, whatever it is that works for you, it's who and what we inherently are. Always, as Dr. James, our teacher, would say, period, end of sentence, no matter what. And so to rediscover that, sometimes, I guess maybe there's so much, it's buried under so much stuff, it can feel like the weight of the world is on you. But as you rediscover who you are, and as you start to reconnect to this incredible, amazing, energetic flow and vibrancy that is livingness and beingness itself, oh my gosh, like enjoy it and allow it to enjoy you, I guess, right? I mean, that's what Thomas Troward talks about, right? Is that the purpose of life is to enjoy life, and that this energy, this spirit is always not even endeavoring, it's always fulfilling itself more and more and more in, through, and as everything.
Yeah, I mean, and one of the things that you said was, that it's not about the it's not about the discovering, it's really about the revealing. And also in this idea of reconnecting, we're always connected. It's just at the level or the how much our consciousness is actually understanding our connection to source, and if we're paying attention, because we're always connected. So I just think as I go through my journey more and I develop more and I reveal more of who I am, that becomes so strong, like you're saying, just like that energy field in your body and that energy field around you it can feel so powerful and so strong, and also a responsibility, where I think some of that maybe, heaviness, you were saying that's not the right word, but some of that can feel a responsibility of staying in that space, especially as becoming a minister. It's like, how do we stay in the space of being in that conscious right mind, even when things are hard? So all of that, it's all of it, right? We get to experience all of the different levels of emotions and thoughts and feelings, as spiritual beings, as we are connecting and reconnecting and rediscovering and revealing who we are.
Yeah. And you know what? Thank you for bringing up that, even when things are hard. And I mean, I know that not everybody is in ministerial class and not
Yeah.
everybody is taking spiritual or consciousness classes. I do believe that on some level, though, everyone is on their journey. Everyone is experiencing life to some degree. And I believe that on some level, just because there is this incredible, amazing, intuitive wisdom and knowingness that is the very, very essence of who and what we are, that this exploration and discovery of self is happening all the time. But it kind of comes back to what you just said, is how aware are we? How conscious of the consciousness, that we are. And so I just, without talking in depth about what happened in class on Thursday, I gotta say, and I wrote a little note to our group this morning, that something in that class shifted for me that night. It just, for me, we were talking about integrity and authenticity, and just the conversation was so, for me, it wasn't in the moment, but what ended up happening for me was, it was profound, because it really, I felt like it took me to another level of just being that much further immersed and ensconced in this journey, in this leg of my journey. Because I've been working towards ministerial for 7 years. And when I first started, it was in, and I know that some of our listeners have heard this before, but when Glenn and I were still in Toronto, then I started my foundational classes with Reverend Jonathan Zenz, who is now in Tucson at Unity Tucson. And so in the very first Foundations for Better Living, that was when we were moving to Victoria from Toronto. And so I started in Toronto. There were a couple of classes along the way in hotels and motels. And then the very first class that I was at, sitting at my stainless steel work table that I still had left over from my bakery, the very first class I was sitting at, that's the class during which I experienced the call to ministry. I didn't know what it was going to mean. I didn't know what it was going to look like. I knew that there was a path that I had to take to get there, according to what the Centers for Spiritual Living laid out. But I had no idea. And here I am 7 years later, 4 months away from that idea in mind from 7 years ago, which all of it really is right now. And it's like, it's so close. And so Thursday's conversation on integrity and talking about staying, like, what is integrity, first of all, and staying in integrity, whether anyone is around or not, like, especially when you're by yourself, because there's no one to check up on you. But Dr. James kind of reminded, well, you're God, so you're always checking up on yourself, kind of thing. And then when it's hard, like when, and for me, the hard part, or the challenging part, which is becoming easier and easier and easier, is to remember that whatever's going on, whoever's in front of me, whoever I'm in community with, every single individual, no matter what they're doing, no matter how they're behaving, even when I'm not, step off principle for a minute, everyone is a unique, original expression of God, of spirit, of source, everyone. And so when comments are being made, or when judgments or criticisms or opinions are being whatever, it's to know that, okay, I don't agree with it. Maybe I can feel my blood starting to boil, at the thought, or maybe I, like, oh, that just, I can't even, when QAnon comes up, And for it's just
It's a
like,
big topic.
but it's like, listen, either you believe or you don't, either you're God or not. And if you are, and you believe in oneness, then so are they. And so, who's to say also, which is not saying that I support, but when coming at it from a quantum perspective, who's to say that there aren't gazillions of realities where what they're saying is actually happening? Right. So,
Totally.
so just, for me, that's kind of where the hard comes in is to, and again, I like the word challenging more than hard, because hard can have a bit of a negative connotation for me. So I like challenging as in something to overcome.
Yeah, hard also can feel like there's not possibility or like space to create it or make it happen. It feels like it's a hard stop, or like it's too much. Challenging feels more fluid to me, or like there's progress, potential.
Yeah. So, but the feeling that I have had since that conversation, since that class, for me, it felt like our class came together more. It felt like there was a coherence at a higher level than we've had so far. And it was just like, okay, for me, I feel like I and our collective experience has just hit another level, has just up leveled in it such a beautiful way. And I just felt so connected to everyone and so in love with everyone. So that's the message that I sent this morning in the Google classrooms, which I know I don't often read, but I just wanted to send it out because it was such a beautiful experience.
I felt very much that way on that call, and just the energy of the room, and talking about such a topic like integrity is something that's one of my core values, and really something that's important for me. And so there was a cohesiveness and a feeling of oneness and connectiveness, and like we're all kind of in this game or this plane of life together for to raise consciousness, or to make better of our own life and for others. And so I really felt that and appreciated that also on last week. And there's something that you said around this whole thing of who are we to say that they're wrong, or that this isn't true, or on that call last week we got into the topic of Hitler, which I won't go too far into that, but it's this idea of who, in his right mind, in his mind, or somebody else's mind that we may be judging or thinking that they're wrong or doing something that we don't agree with, but in their mind, that's where their integrity is, and that's where they think in that moment they're doing the right thing. So one of the things that changed my life and that goes through my mind all the time is when we make people, places, and things wrong. Anytime we make people, places, or things wrong, we set into motion our own suffering, right? It's like that saying around the poison, like if we're drinking poison, we expect the other person to die.
Yeah.
And so that has changed my complete perspective around when somebody is standing in front of me. They are the divine, they are God, source, whatever that is for you, love. And we need to hold them, or we get to hold them in that consciousness, in that space of pure perfection. Whether we agree or disagree, that's not for us to say. But they are pure in their intentions, whether we agree or not, right? In their right mind, and their integrity, and their morals, or whatever that they have. But so that whole thing that you just said is something that's really, it's a practice every single day to not get into that space, especially when we're by ourselves. And this just actually happened to me with a friend. It was like, I felt like there was a separation happening. I didn't feel like it was an integrity anymore. And I was suffering from it. It was like a conversation that I just kept having over and over and over in my own mind and with other people. And I felt myself kind of spiraling, trying to get out of this relationship or this friendship. And what I realized was they don't care. Like I'm just causing this for myself in my own mind. And I'm not in integrity with my my own, godness or divinity. So it is in those moments when we're by ourselves, is how do we stay in integrity? How do we stay in right mind? How do we stay, connected to source, and not making other people wrong.
Yeah. Oh, such an amazing point. And I really, I still, because that was such a good conversation. And I'm so grateful that that Hitler was brought up. And I mean, Dr.
Yeah.
James joked about, it wouldn't be an advanced consciousness class if Hitler wasn't brought up in some way. And and I still am not sure that integrity is the right word. I like agreement
you could say
that you just used, and someone said in alignment. And for me, what I ended up saying was, he was on point with what he truly believed, which is fine. But integrity, when I look at the word integrity, and I realize that there's nuance to the way that it's used, when speaking of integrity in terms of wholeness, there's no way that could be an integrity, because it just isn't. It like, I know that he is an expression, and his all of his ideas were expressions, in some skewed way of the divine or God or spirit source, whatever. But because there was harm being done to other people, it's just, again, I don't often quote Troward, but if you go back to Troward when he's talking, or even Ernest Holmes, really, who we know pinched from Troward a lot, that this oneness, that this like harmony, beauty, grace, playfulness, creativity, that is the essence of everyone and everything, it cannot act against itself. Because if it acted against itself, if there was an evil duplicitous side to it, it wouldn't be one thing. There would be duality, there would be another thing. And so where I am right now in my level of consciousness, I don't agree with Hitler being in integrity. In alignment, in agreement, okay, but because integrity equals wholeness to me, it just it doesn't make sense to me that's how he.
So is integrity, the meaning of integrity to you, is it a relative meaning, or is it an absolute meaning? Like, is integrity different for you than it is for other people? And
well, and this was what Dr. James was, he brought up, where like they can be different, like ministerial versus personal.
Right.
And so for me, where I'm coming from is, I guess, from a very idealistic viewpoint, which is integrity, period.
Yeah.
And even though we talk about the absolute versus the relative, or the allness versus the personal or individualized, the universal versus the macro versus the micro, it's all macro, it's all absolute, it's all wholeness, it's all oneness. And as above, so below, as within, so without. And so I don't know if I can answer your question any better right now, because for me, I guess it is. I'm coming at it from a very philosophical, idealist point of view, where it's, either it is or it isn't, and that's it. So I guess absolutely.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I mean, and that's where we get to create our own. I mean, yes, there's integrity and ministerial that is, absolute, and like we need to be that, but we get to create also what we believe to be. Either it is or it isn't, and that may shift, for some people, what some people might. And then we have to think about morals too, because morals is sometimes can be mistaken for integrity as well. But I think that's where you get to decide, what your beliefs are around it, and what integrity is for you individually. And I mean, I definitely fall in the line with you of integrity as this philosophical, it is or it isn't. And I also get to look at each individual person, no matter what they've done, as whole and complete. It's like people who are in prison, or, do those kinds of things. Do I agree? No. And they're just a reflection of me, right? They're just a fractal of the same thing that I'm a fractal of. So I think also we don't have to agree with what they've done. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
But
then
I am with you on integrity with that whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and just to what you said, I mean, whether you're talking about people in prison or people that we know and love,
Yep.
no one is their actions, no one is their beliefs, no one is their feelings, no one is their thoughts. Those are aspects of their experience, perhaps, but underneath it all, that infinite creativity, that imagination, that livingness, that beingness, that divinity, that infinitude, that's who and what they are. And for me, and I believe for you, and I would venture everyone in our ministerial class, that that's what we are here to continue to see and know, you know, for other people when they aren't able to know for themselves.
Yeah, I mean, that's really my only purpose really in this lifetime is just to know truth for other people. Yes, Glenn.
I just wanted to interject something there. So I'm a big words person, so I automatically go to dictionaries and thesaurus and all that. But this type of thing of when you try to define it, it's in comparison to other words that are kind of in the same range or frequency. So one of the words that came up in the thesaurus was probity, which is more of an English word, like England, UK. And that is sort of defined as the quality or state of being morally sound, which brings in compared to the average, right? It's this thing of like integrity. This person's acting in integrity because they're like the shining beacon. Because look what's happening down here. The average person is just going to like, well, I know I should really, but you know, I got to feed my kids or I got to do this, right? So, you know, I don't want to go on about that too much, but it's an interesting thing that you've got there's going to be a range, you know. So with the example that last I brought up in the class of like this epitome of like wrongdoing, who also may have been acting on his own morals, right? His own moral standards were like way up for him. And I shouldn't do that hand gesture with talking about him. I'll keep my hands down here. So with that, I mean, we're still back to like we're all together in a kind of unity, but it's a loose unity, you know. So the ideal would be we're all acting in integrity, right? Because then maybe we would up level to a new height that we'd never even imagined before. If everyone's base level rose, we would be like, whoa, now we're capable of doing this, you know, together. We can do a lot more. But then as the downside of that is like, well, then are we all just like being programmed and being told what to think, right? And then it gets into this thing like, no, that's not for me. I want my
programmed. Sorry? And told by who? By what?
By the new expected kind of standard for what is moral.
Yeah, but where does that come from? If everyone is up leveling in consciousness, if everyone is opening up to their potential, who's like, are these instructions that you're talking about guidelines coming from somewhere else?
Okay, I'm just saying that when you get into a new state, you've got don't laugh in the middle
like
of
societal, like maybe societal people, like in society, what we're told is
like I don't think that you know, for me the idea of communism is attractive to younger people because it's like, wow, imagine what we can all do together when we work together and whatever. Well, yeah, but then together to do what? Like what's the purpose?
What's the
you
thing?
Have individuals strong individually, but when they work together with their own their own strengths and weaknesses, but their strengths are like really well developed. So then you work with another person from a different perspective that has something that they do not. You can like build things, you can, because this person is actually good at planning, this person's good at building, this person is good at like the aesthetic of it, But I'm just saying, the comparative thing is what's throwing me off a little bit here, this integrity idea, because it just implies that there's always going to be comparing going on, which means judgment and maybe discernment if you're in the right framework, right? Which is good. But earlier on, I'm just going to switch back. Earlier on, Nicolle, you were talking about stuff that, as you were saying it, about being, I forget what it was, but about the playful thing, and if you're able to to be open to not just like the rational kind of how to live your life in a good way, but if you're tapped into the divine, I think that's what it was when you were first saying in your "who do you think you are" answer. The thing with that is we turn off that connection, right? It's like, and I just reminded me of like when I have my phone, and I realized after like a day and a half, I was like, oh, the ringer's off. Like I put the hard button down to no. So I was like, why hasn't anyone, like, I'm not getting Lassie's texts, or there's no sound coming out, because I deliberately or accidentally, will say, turned it off. Which leads to notifications. Like we all have our own preferences. We can set up the same device and we just like slide up and down, and like, I don't want to hear when I get an email. I don't want to hear a ring. I don't want to hear text. So if we're doing that and blocking like this intuitive flow that's happening, because that's who we are, the divine is, if we've deliberately turned it off because we want to figure it out ourselves in a different way, then, well, clearly we're only getting like a third of the information, right? Because there's a lot from the collective that is ready to come to us, and we're like, okay, I either accidentally or deliberately turned it off. It's like, I'll figure it out myself, So
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think there's moments where we can be completely turned off and not. And I think that's where like this word, like I've used this word for myself, where I feel very disconnected. I'm not receiving those notifications or those downloads or messages or whatever you want to say about that. But I do think that we can intentionally, deliberately, unintentionally, unconsciously, consciously, intentionally, whatever, turn that on and off. I think the awareness of that is what's really, really important, is when we want to be connected, that we're able to hit that higher level of consciousness, or to be able to receive those messages or those downloads. So
yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Since you are advocating for setting your phone to receive notifications, which I do not. I turn off all my notifications. I go to my phone when I want to go to my phone. I check my phone for texts and whatever when I want to. I don't want to be bombarded constantly. And so I'm thinking, using your metaphor here, the notification settings and the preferences, that's where we can pick and choose what it is that we want to tune into, or the messages that we want to receive, so to speak. And so, that kind of pairs up with what you were just saying, Nicolle, about being aware. And so being aware, do you want to get every single notification from every single thing that happens on Instagram and Facebook every moment of every day? No, you want to get the notifications from the people that you follow, that enrich your life, that, somehow add value to your life experience. And maybe you don't want every post on there. Maybe you just want to know when they offer something, not when the 1,500 people who are following them post something as well. So as someone who has notifications turned off completely,
I do too.
that's one thing that I would offer, is that that's where the awareness and the intention can come in, is we are consciously choosing what it is that we want to be tuned into, what it is that we want to be open and receptive to. That because in Science of Mind, we teach that in subconscious mind, in that just incredible swirling miasma, that one aspect of the triune nature of God, every memory, every thought, every belief, everything is that could ever possibly be is there. Do you
Yep.
want to have access to all of it all the time? No. You want to have access, you want to tune into or focus or put your energy on the things that are going to allow you to live your most amazing, vibrant, fantastic life in the moment, right there, and not be bogged down or have your attention split in a gazillion different directions by opening up to all of it. At least that's where I'm coming from right now. Thoughts?
Oh, 100%. I mean, that's why we have like these memory banks, or that's, you know, that are stored in our subconscious or unconscious, you know, they're running in the background, but we're not thinking about them or getting messages from them, you know, all the time. And so, no, I don't want to be in the space of constantly being bombarded by those things. That's where the fun and the joy comes in, is when I want to tap into it, I can, but I don't want it to be always running and reminding me. I get to turn that off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Honey Bunch, anything else?
No, that ties it up, because it's like, I want to go play with my friends. I want to play on my own. I want to, using the same, metaphor. You're still being the universe doing something, but if you're having fun doing it, then you're doing it the right way. If there are feelings in the background while you're doing it, or mixed, emotions or whatever, then maybe it's not the best thing for you to be doing. But yeah, this is where we learn from kids, right? It's like I was thinking yesterday about going back a couple of generations, even one or two. Kids always out just playing, and they just found things to do when there was nothing to do. They would just make things up, and we all did that, right? These days it's more of a challenge for kids because everything is screen centered and people are staying home more, where they're not open to that as much, that their potential isn't being just demonstrated nonstop, because they're focusing on fewer things like devices and connections in different way through devices, if that's what the parents allow them to do. But yeah, I just sort of had that feeling yesterday about, oh yeah, I remember it would be like nothing. Even I grew up in the UK, so when your soccer ball got lost or got a puncture in it or something, you would just do something else. You'd be like throwing sticks at each other or whatever. It was just like fun, right? Because that's why you were outside and not inside, and then when you went inside, it was to do your homework or eat and go to bed. That was it, right? So.
That's how I have an 8 and a 10-year-old. And one of the things that I was told, which ties into this, they've been in Waldorf education since they were 2, which is, it has a strong spiritual bent to it, and has a lot of the same beliefs that we believe in. And very much kind of that paganism, natural way of being. But one of the things that their teacher told me was boredom is the best thing for children, and probably for adults too, because we get creative and we figure it out, and we figure out, that's what those, like, boredom maybe for an adult is like that silence of just, what can I create in this moment? And that's really for children too. For them, when they're bored, I'm like, yes, because then they figure out the most amazing game to play with their friends or with each other, or go outside. and, be in the elements. If it's snowing or raining or hot or whatever, they figure it out. And I think that's just human nature. And I wish that more children could be. During the pandemic, we were so lucky because everybody was inside, and we live in a neighborhood where it's like that old school neighborhood where kids literally, it's like we have everybody's phone number. Do you have my kid? Did you feed my kid? They were just out in the world and playing in the dirt and being expressive in what they wanted. And I wish more, both adults and children could experience that freedom.
Yeah, that I remember when I was younger, growing up in Edmonton, which is in Alberta, the part of the prairies, and we were outside all the time. We would hop on our bikes, we would go and we would just ride. I mean, there was no adult supervising us or anything. We would just go and we would ride, and sometimes we would venture into territory we weren't supposed to venture into, but always live to tell the tale. We might come back with some, scrapes and bruises and whatever, but we would be out for hours. And if there was ever and like, honestly, also my sister and I grew up in a household where, I mean, my family is Ukrainian, both sides Ukrainian, several generations back. And so one of the extracurricular activities that we were involved in was this Ukrainian scouting organization called Plast, which was as much a social organization and leadership organization as it was about surviving in the wild. And so we spent our summers and even some of our winters at camp out in the wilderness, chopping down trees, building things. I knew how to do the knots and stuff, but we loved being outside. And for those times where we were bored inside, because we didn't have a TV the whole time while we were growing up. I mean, VCRs just came out when I was a kid, and you had to rent them from the video store for the weekend or whatever. And the whole thing was, if you're bored, go outside. Go outside.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I run my house.
That's something to do. Like, always, like, nature provides all the time. Nature's got it going on. There is always something to do outside. And even if you live in suburbia, there's a park somewhere, there's a ravine somewhere, there's, some kind of green somewhere. But it also, you can shift your perspective and find something to do, because we are creativity expressing all the time. So why would you think a thought or do something that, keeps you small and bored? Open up. Go ahead.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, imagine like a child, they build a little cave or, out of sticks or whatever, and that's like a castle to them. Mm-hmm. They get to create, like, we've got a property here, and they get into the bushes and whatever. And because it's infinite to them. There's no limit to what they can create. And as adults and people in this world, that's the same for us too. There's absolutely no limit to the possibility and the pure potential that we can create if we allow ourselves to get maybe, bored or whatever, or allow ourselves to dream and to believe that the possibilities are there. And create from that space in just that infinite possibility mindset or belief system. Because really all that we do really comes down to, do we believe it's possible? And getting to the core of what our beliefs are so that we can shift those. And children just have this natural belief that it's all possible, and that they can create whatever they want.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I back to our class, one of the earlier classes when Dr. James, I can't remember if he was doing stand and delivers or just asking us questions. And he began a question with, is it possible? And I can't remember if you were the one that got the question or not, but I was so excited when he asked that question, because I thought the only answer is yes. And like, you don't even need to go on. It's just, and then whether it was you or someone else was giving the answer, then he just goes, just ask me the question. Just ask me the question. And then, the person asked him the question, and sure enough, he goes, yes.
Yeah.
Infinite possibilities, right? So, yeah.
It's so interesting with him because I came from a different teacher or whatever. And it's so simplistic in his mind of like, it just is. It just is like, there's no, and that's what's so fascinating is he allows our mind to take things in a different direction and see what comes up, and where actually our, beliefs are, and what we've been kind of programmed or whatever to think from society or taught. But really, it's very simplistic. It just is. It just is. And that's so, sometimes you just, you want to like fight back or, have a different perspective or kind of be that, but, and he just, no, it just is like, there's just no gray area here. So, it's fascinating to kind of see that. And that's the perfect example.
Yeah. So, Honey Bunch, did you want to add anything here? No? Okay. So who did you, excuse me, who did you study with? I know who you studied with, but for the people who are listening, who did you take your spiritual practitioner training with?
I took my I took my practitioner license with New Thought Global. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And is that Dr. Erin Haskell, or is
That is?
It
Yeah.
is. Okay. And I know she's excuse me, one of Dr. James's students from way back. I don't know if she was like in the first or maybe second ministerial class that he taught. But she seems to be quite the spiritual powerhouse with what she's doing in the world these days. So are you connected to her in other ways aside from her being her teacher, or sorry, her being your teacher?
So she was my teacher, but I also worked for a few years as her right-hand person in the business side of everything. Because obviously what she does is a very different model than having a center, or it's everything is online and there's courses and things like that. So I went through all the courses first, and then I went into practitioner and started ministerial there. And during practitioner and ministerial, I also then got into being kind of her like lead coach and right-hand person on the back end of everything. So that was an incredible learning process to be able to learn how everything kind of works. And so I played two roles, the student and also on the business side.
Oh, that's an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, it really was. I'm really grateful for it, because now I understand how this kind of stuff works, and all of the different online kind of ways of doing business. And my reach is a lot bigger now, because with her, it was global. And so we had students all over the world, and it was an incredible learning experience to be able to have that.
Mm-hmm. And
and keeping it in spiritual principle, right? In our work. Yeah.
And so what brought you to Dr. James?
Because I was in that space for about 4 or 5 years, I wanted a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And Reverend Dr. now Liza, is somebody that I had met originally through Dr. Erin, and we had stayed in contact. And so I contacted her and said, "Hey, I just want a different perspective. I just want to learn this next level from somebody different." And so I reached out to Dr. James and had a conversation, and it's been amazing, because it's very different, in the way the teaching is and the model and everything. So I'm grateful to be learning this part of it from somebody who actually is in a traditional role of ministerial, and not, online.
Yeah.
Right
on. Okay. Honey Bunch, anything else?
So those courses that were online where people would become certified as, I guess, practitioners and/or ministers.
All through the same. Well, there's different levels of what you can do, whether you're becoming a coach or,
So I guess in the coaching world, that's one thing. And again, the practitioner stuff I'm familiar with it, but because I live with it and have for so long years. But the actual, I'm dovetailing with the COVID response over the last few years in different countries. So if you're not in community at a church or a spiritual center, like to begin with, that's one thing. But then if you were, and then that became not available to you, and then like, what do you think about that? Like, it's sort of natural for people just to go, they want to go back together, but some people don't, right? Some people are like, actually, you know what? I'll just watch the recording later in the week in my pajamas or whatever. I don't like.
Yeah.
Do you find that, like, because if you're coming, this is a confusing question, I'm sorry, but like, if you have if everything was online, you did your courses online, and you get a community with the people you're studying with, that's one thing. But then it's just an online only set of experiences that you then take out into your world through your home life and your work and your whatever. But I think there's still something missing with that, compared with just like learning in the classroom, because there's no energy that compares with like being with other people, like in a group, right?
Yeah. Well, and this is part of the other reason why I moved to Dr. James too, was I wanted the ability to, like, my brother lives in LA, and I wanted the ability to be able to go to a church in when I want to, and have that community experience. And I have to say, being online, yes, it's a different energy, but if you're intentional about it, I mean, there's people now who are traveling, all over the country and doing different experiences together and retreats together, and bringing this work into a different form, not into church form, but still bringing this knowing and this knowledge as ministers out into the world in a different way. So I think it's shifting, and I think it's changing from just being in a Sunday church setting to being online, and then from there intentionally creating outside of that in person. Because, or like for somebody like me, I live in a small town. We don't, the Center for Spiritual Living here is very, very small, and the demographic is over 60, right? So it doesn't really call for me or for my children to go, and we do go sometimes, but I have to create something else for myself that feels like I can relate to or be. Does that make sense? But and I also agree with you that we do need to have that in-person connectivity.
There was it's funny because just in terms of a paradox, I was listening to Alan Watts talk where he was saying he doesn't like the idea of going to church to be in the Christian tradition. So he grew up in this UK, Scottish, I think, upbringing, fairly strict Christian. But he realized, like, he wanted to get away from what that meant in a Christian setting that he grew up in, because it was like you go and you listen to this story, and then you're doing all these things with people, and there's a lot of like talking and like singing. And for him, it was like, no, that's not what you should be going to church for. You should be going to contemplate. And he broke it down into, I guess the Latin contemplare or something, which is like, be in temple, like go be in the temple and just sit there and like contemplate God, like be with God in this kind of special setting. But we as human beings, we have this other things like, well, yeah, but while we're there, we should probably have a little bit of catching up, and then all the other stuff kind of filters in with the sad stories, and, oh, didn't you hear what happened to so and so, and my neck hurts and all this, right? And of course that drove him off into studying, with gurus and Buddhism, and he just like is brilliant in terms of pulling all that back. But I just love this idea of like this weird paradox. We go to this to be with other people, for maybe a different reason than we think we are doing, because really if you just go and sit in nature, then you're doing what this idea is to sit in the temple. It's the same thing, right? You're still being with oneness, right?
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's just a weird
it's that's why they say, that's why not they say, I shouldn't say they, because who's they, but but that's why, I believe it's your temple is really within. So if you're sitting by a tree or on the beach or in the mountains, or I love to go out and sit by the river and just be with the oneness or spirit or whatever. And that I can get just as much from as being in a actual center or whatever. One thing I do love sometimes when I go is I can just sit in the back and just, it's like my moment to just receive the messaging that's coming through for that minister. And I don't even need to have all the other conversations and all the other connections, but sometimes for me, just to receive that from somebody else is transformative and like really what I needed in that moment. So I think it's whatever you create from that space. It's like the Buddhas who are up in I don't know where they are, but just sitting and praying for everybody. That's their church and their God and their temple. And sometimes it's sitting in my hot tub out here and just being. So, it's kind of where you desire it to be and can be in that space. Mm-hmm.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when Glenn was sort of asking the question. Just because Alan Watts says that's that's what church should be, that's what we should do. The question I wrote down was, why do we attend church? Why do we, what is it? And I know for me, I grew up Ukrainian Catholic, and I can still walk into a Ukrainian Catholic church or really any kind of church where there's wooden pews, where there are candles, where there's stained glass, maybe some confessionals, and there is just a deep sense of reverence that I feel.
Yeah.
And I can just sit and just feel the energy. And I just, I love it. It is just so profound to me. However, what I prefer in terms of, and it's not even worship, is celebration and joy and fun. I mean, music has been such a huge part of my life. And so the very first time I went to the Center for Spiritual Living in Toronto is when I still had my bakery. And even though I really appreciated that there was a live band and people were singing and dancing and having fun, it wasn't quite for me at the time. And then a few years later, Glenn said, and this is in my book, Glenn said, you know what I want to do next Sunday? I'd really like to go to the Center for Spiritual Living. And I'm like, okay, sure, let's go. And as soon as we walked in, everybody was so genuinely happy. They were so delighted that we were there. I felt so welcomed. And even though kind of felt a little shy about standing up and dancing and singing along because I didn't know the songs. By the third time that I was there was some blues tune that they played, and I'm like, that's it, I'm up. And that was it. And just, it was like, this is fun. Church was never fun growing up. It was a serious affair. If you laughed, you're going to hell. If you giggled, if you fidgeted, whatever, you're going to hell. Like, you got to respect God, you got to respect the community, and you're not showing respect if you're smiling or having fun. And so to have fun and play in church, for me, just felt awesome. And that to me is feeling connected. That to me, being like within like the people around me. And so that was very valuable. When I came across Dr. James through CSL Toronto, because he was now Dr. Reverend Jonathan Zenz's teacher and mentor, and a lot of people had taken mental muscle there. His education through entertainment, or enlightened through entertainment, it just, like, I love it. It's like watching a show every time, like, it just, I paid $25, to go and see that concert, that TV production or whatever. And so that for me is valuable. And that's how I feel more inspired
Yeah.
more me is when I experience that kind of joy and enthusiasm. It's not when I go to a sleepier center where the science of mind teachings are there. Maybe there's some quantum physics, but the music just does not connect. It doesn't resonate. And that just, it doesn't work for me. So I think, but I also totally agree with you. I can go and stand out in our backyard on the squishy moss, look up at the trees and just, you know, love it. Just be completely grounded, connected, interconnected, and feel the energy that I am, that is the same as the trees and the sky and the little squirrels running around and the water, just babbling through the brook that we have in our backyard. There's so many different ways. So yeah, so just the notion of like, why do we attend, what it is that awakens us to more of who we are. It can be different from person to person, and likely different even for us at different times in our life or in our week. So
Yeah, if we had a center here that was more alive and the music really resonated and the congregation was looked different, I would be there every Sunday before it started. I mean, because I community and being able to be around other people is something that's really important to me. I really love that aspect of it. And also for my children to be able to be around elders and people who are in this work and just kind of it be infused into them without it being necessarily taught to them through Sunday school or something like that is really important to me. I just don't have that here. And so I have to find other ways. We do have a center, but it doesn't resonate with me as much as I would like it to. And so it can be a little bit more of that sleepy kind of church feeling, which is too bad. But I'm like you. I do like that feeling of being able to dance and have fun and sing and bring God into different ways of what feels like play.
mm-hmm. It's, and I'm just going to make a plug here for the Center of Love here in Victoria/Langford, which is a community that I am one of the co-founding members of. And we meet every other week, and at the home of our friends Ollie and Candace, who are also co-founders. Ollie's the one who basically had like the big download and was like, I got to start a church, and then just started talking to people about, okay, how do we do this kind of thing? And that's my main source of inspiration here. I mean, I watch Dr. James online, and every now and then Palm Desert and Unity, Vancouver Island, because they have a weekly gathering in Nanaimo. But then the other two cities that are now part of the Vancouver Island, once a month, there's a live in-person thing. So once a month, if I can make it to the Unity gathering, which Glenn does, then I will go with him, because I like being with people, and that community still very much inspires me. I used to work for them for a year and a half, a few years ago. But the Center of Love is, there are kids, I like how he said elders, and there's a community. Everyone is teacher and student. So there's no spiritual director or leader. It is a spiritual community, but we all know we all have something to bring to the table. So like tomorrow, Glenn is speaking, and it's his second time speaking, and really looking forward to what he's gonna bring to the table, to the lectern. And what I love is that, there's music at the beginning, there's music at the end, and it's like a video from YouTube. And sometimes it's music we know, sometimes it's music we don't. Sometimes we're all like, oh my God, that was amazing. Who's that artist? Adding it to, our playlist. And there are some opening words of welcome to remind everyone why we come together. Then there's a 10-minute talk. Then there's a meditation for 10 minutes. And then we get into groups or in a forum setting and we talk about it for half an hour, which is so awesome. And the kids are running around playing and, like coloring, and they weigh in sometimes. And then there are words, saying thank you, goodbye, and then another video, and we're done. And it's just, it's growing. And the conversation is really where the magic happens. It's not just listening to someone standing at the front of the room giving a message. It's like, okay, what are you getting out of it? And that sparks, this incredible, amazing conversation. And so and we meet every other week, which allows us to go and do other things on the other Sundays, which for me is great because I happen to be speaking once a month now. And then with Unity, I put that on my calendar, if I can. So it's a nice blend of having something in person to go to and then having something online as well.
If I lived where you were, we would be there every time. That's what I should just create that here.
You could go online.
Ministers speaking, or do you like at your gathering with the children that you were talking about, is it ministers that are speaking, or is it just people in the work?
Okay. The only person who is in any kind of consciousness or spiritual studies in that collective is me, but everyone is just this like brilliant, exploding, expanding, curious mind and heart, and the interconnectivity. I mean, it's called the center of love because love is leading the way all the time. And it is just like, that is what we endeavor to be immersed in, steeped in, become more of. And that it's the fabric, the thread that interconnects us all. And so it's about sharing and experiencing. And so most of the time the speaker is from the group, but we have had some people come in every now and then, and there is someone coming, actually my boss, my employer from the chiropractic clinic where I work, she's going to come in April, and she's going to talk about the kind of chiropractic she does primarily, which is best work. We've talked about it in class a little bit with Dr. Sue Mortar coming up. And it's just, if science of mind were a chiropractic technique, best is what it would be. And so it is all about clearing interference of whatever it is that is keeping your body from being in alignment. And most of the time, it has to do with some kind of negative thinking or belief that is somehow clogging up your body somewhere, that is then kicking your spine out of alignment because the messages aren't flowing from your brain to the rest of your body. And then muscles get pulled, and then you start to feel pain and whatever. So she's going to talk about that. And I'm really excited for her to share because I'm just such a huge fan of hers and the work she does. And there are people who come online because they don't live in town. There have been people online from the very beginning. So if you're ever interested, you could always check it out online. I know it's not being there in person, but you can be part of the conversation. So
yeah, a lot of it is conversation. I used to have a podcast, which I'm thinking about launching again, but don't hold me to it. It's called Soul
something Chat. About that you were going to launch it again.
I know. And, but it's in the works.
Okay.
Anyways, it was called Soul Chat, and it was named Soul Chat Conscious Conversations. And I just liked talking to people. I liked having these conversations with people, whether my podcast got really big or not. It was really for me to have conversations with other people and to learn about all the ways that people are being in the world. And so, yeah, I love that.
Why this podcast exists.
Yeah.
That's exactly why this podcast exists. Honey Bunch, I'm writing some notes. Can you oh, you know what? It's actually 20 after. Maybe we should move into the next segment, unless you have something to say. Do you? No?
And we've got some vacuuming going on upstairs there, so
I can't hear it at all.
Can't hear it.
Yeah. No. I think the furnace, if anything, that is here in the ceiling is louder, but it's you guys haven't said anything, so
no, it's turned off.
And I had to just mute because like my dog started barking. It's like, that's probably not going to be good on a podcast.
Okay, so here's what we're going to do. Because we could keep talking. I know we could keep talking, and we haven't had a repeat guest yet. But oh my gosh, Nicolle, it would be so nice to have you on the show again.
Yeah, I would love that.
Yeah, it just because this, like when we had Jonathan Zenz on, his is the longest that we've ever had. It went for over 2.5 hours. And then we're like, wow, we have to stop. But it just kept going. And it was one of those conversations that just like I don't even know how to explain it, but someone would say something and then someone would think something new. And then, like from that and that and that, it was just like, it's one of my favorite because it was just so much about ideas, just like they were coming through. It was so fantastic. But
I
yeah, two
love
and a half
that.
hours, not everybody will listen to 2.5 hours, but you can in chunks, right? But anyway, okay, so we're going to do this segment and then you can let people know about your stuff and how they get in touch with you. So we're going to move into what's called the super rapid fire question round, where Glenn
Right.
is going to bombard you with questions as quickly as he can, and you're going to answer them as quickly as you can off the top of your head. No contemplation here, just like whatever comes to mind for 1 minute. And then he's going to tell you what you've won.
What I've won.
For those people who are listening, one is always in air quotation marks because we know what that means. Clock. Okay, so I want 1 minute. Okay, Honey Bunch, are you ready?
Yeah.
That
Yes.
wasn't a very definitive yes. Okay, on your mark, get set, and go.
Okay, Nicolle, do you sing in the shower?
No.
Which do you prefer, solitude or dinner parties?
Oh God, I can't contemplate it though. I probably would say dinner parties.
Okay, calling or texting people?
Texting for sure.
Silent meditation or guided meditation?
I like guided meditation.
Salty or sweet?
Depends on the moment.
Right now.
Okay, Pink Floyd or Gary Lynn Floyd?
I don't even know who Gary Lynn Floyd is.
Okay. Reading
Floyd.
reading to kids or watching movies with the kids?
Oh, reading.
Rain or snow?
I like the rain. I like the sound of it.
Tea or coffee?
Coffee.
Ding, 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 ding.
Okay.
Okay, Glenn, why don't you tell Nicolle what she's won?
Okay, a reading from a poetry book by Sarah Rogers. It's called Elemental Magic, Poetic Chapters of Wild Self-Love.
Ooh, I love that.
So, have you heard of it?
Nope, but I mean, I love it.
Okay, so this is the one that I came up with, which is, the heading is Becoming. It's back to the parenting thing, but it could be for other people, I guess, as well. Becoming. She is not mine. She belongs to herself. She is not my canvas to paint on. She has colors that are of her own palette, vibrant, shaded, sparkle neon, and luminescent, perhaps. She is a prayer, a holder of knowledge only she was told. My part is simple. The pain of labor and of love is to just let it happen with minimal interference. Allow her to be what and who she is, uninhibited by analysis or thought. She is becoming what she always was, like the universe.
That's a beautiful. Who is that by? That's
Sarah Rogers, S-A-R-A, Rogers, Elemental Magic. Lovely
love
book
that.
that was gifted to Lassia by our friend.
Yeah, for my birthday. That was, oh my gosh, that was such a perfect one. Glenn always, talk about one mind, ends up picking something out that is just fantastic and relevant to what we've been talking about here today. So thank you. And Nicolle, now is the time to tell people more about your program, where they can go if they want to get in touch with you, find out more about what it is that you do. And then I'll put a slide up with that information too, so that people who are watching can see it, but it'll be in the description as well. So
so the best way to get a hold of me is on social media. If you're on social media, my handles are Nicolle Star XO with 2 L's. My Nicolle has 2 L's. And so that's both on Instagram and Facebook, or my website, which is NicolleStar.com. Again, Nicolle with 2 L's. And you can book a call with me and we can have a chat. And I'd love to connect with anybody who, just wants to connect or hear a little bit more about what I do, or also if you're in a space of feeling, that you might need a little bit of support. I'm here to do that as well. I do have a program that is starting March 13th called the Divine Purpose Project. And really what this container is a 4-month container primarily for women. I mean, if there's a man that really wants to come in, they are welcome. But for women to come in and to be held and seen and unravel kind of that stuckness, that feeling of maybe not being worthy in the world, knowing that there's something more, wanting to discover a deeper purpose, whether that's to be the best baker that you can be, or to be the best parent you can be, or spouse, or something bigger, launching a business, and being able to get to the root of what's keeping you kind of stuck. And we talked a lot about, having those beliefs and those stories that are held in our unconscious or subconscious minds, and revealing what those might be, what those beliefs might be through trauma work, through somatics, through prayer, through meditation, and all the different things. So that is starting, that's also on my website.
Is there a specific link for that, or is there just like a big button or something that they can?
Yeah, I did send you the link for that specific page, but on my main website, it just says group coaching. And then there is a spot that does say the Divine Purpose Project that people
Okay.
Can, or
I'll put in a specific link too.
Yeah.
And you can access it through the Instagram, because your link tree on your Instagram, because I just followed you on Instagram, so I can see that the website's there and everything.
Yeah, I did change. I actually need to change that link in Linktree. So thanks for that reminder. But yes, it is there as well.
Cool.
Amazing. Nicolle, thank you so much. And
Thank
you, like special thank you, because I know that you are a mom and you have your 2 boys. And so your time is just so precious, as is theirs. So thank you for carving out some space for us today. And it has been a delight. It has been just such an enriching, joyful conversation. Thank you for reminding us about how integral play is to who and what we are, and how boredom can be such a great source of inspiration. And Honey Bunch, thank you for that poem from Sarah Rogers on becoming. Just a few lines that jumped out at me. She belongs to herself. She is a prayer. Let it happen. Allow. And that she is becoming what she always was, which is, I think, what's happening for all of us. That is the becoming. That is our life experience. We are this infinite creativity, resilience, and love, no matter what is going on, no matter what we're feeling. We are God. We are the divine. We are universe. We are imagination and creativity, and we are infinite in scope and eternal beings. So for this incredible conversation today, Nicolle Star, thank you for being our guest. Honey Bunch, thank you for co-steering the ship once again. And thank you to you for joining us. However you're joining, whether you are watching, whether you are listening, we so appreciate your time and presence. And we look forward to seeing you again for another episode of Who Do You Think You Are? Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
This has been an episode of Who Do You Think You Are? An exploration into how our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings create our reality. My name is Lassia Cahoot, and I have been your host. My co-host has been Glenn Sheridan. We'd like to thank the following for helping make this podcast a reality. Today's special guest, Nicolle Star. Music, Vasco Lorenco, copyright 123rf.com. Background illustration, Sakma Sterke, copyright 123rf.com. For more information on this podcast and our Lassia Cahoot Soul Excavator, please visit www.lassiacahoot.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts on what you just heard. We invite you to like, subscribe, and or let us know by leaving a comment. Thanks for tuning in to Who Do You Think You Are?